Shalom, family. Good to see you all. Hope you're doing well. Well, I'm just on this end trying to keep up with your orders, and they've been coming in, and I'm grateful. So I am here and I am ready. So, whenever something is in the media about sending troops somewhere and they're saying they're getting them ready, or possible, and all that stuff, that means it's already going to happen. It's been planned out, it's going to happen. So, probably more than likely, this week, you're going to hear about the troops going to Minnesota. And, I just hate that our people are going to be caught up in it because so many people in our community are part of the military. And boy, if I could do anything to keep us from getting involved in all this immigration stuff, I would. I absolutely would. So, y'all, I pray for our people if they have to get sent. I just pray for their safety. It is a pretty volatile situation there, and it's not going to get better. You got the same racism in ICE that you do on the police force. And, I just don't want our people to get caught up in this crap. We have done real well staying off of the streets and staying in and keeping ourselves out of harm's way. Yeah, it's going to always be a few of our people caught up in what's going on, but it should not be an overwhelming number of us out in those streets, you know? So let me go ahead and share my screen, ladies and gentlemen, so we can get started. Please give me a one if you can see my screen. Shalom to everybody in the chat. And I want to thank everyone that have donated. I'm more than halfway to my goal. I thank you. It could not have been done without you. Thank you so much. Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone.
He's not playing with y'all. Here comes the troops. The Trump administration is reportedly preparing 1,500 active duty soldiers to be on standby for a possible deployment to Minnesota. These troops are from the 11th Airborne Division, where these soldiers are trained for cold weather operations. White House and the Pentagon have not officially confirmed deployment. ICE is a federal law agency and is to conduct criminal investigation and to enforce immigration law. Anyone that's interfering with that is obstruction of justice. My name is Tiffany. I lost 150 pounds in 2.5 years, naturally. And I also report different news topics. Tap in.
Okay, so it's like 2:50 in the morning, and I'm driving DoorDash trying to make a few extra bucks, and I get the goddamn notification saying that the Pentagon is readying 1,500 active duty soldiers to be deployed into Minnesota. Trump is going to enact the Insurrection Act any day now, and we need to wake the fuck up. We should have woken the fuck up 6 months ago when I was yelling and screaming like all of the other leftists back then. But right now, if you haven't woken up, wake the fuck up right now. Arm yourself, fucking get your fucking community together, and make sure that you prepare to defend your communities and your cities and your towns. These motherfuckers are big government, the same big government that all of you Republicans have been yelling about for all of these years. I waited to post this until I got home so I can double check. And yes, the National Guard is preparing to send 1,500 troops to Minnesota. Be prepared.
The White House is preparing to send 1,500 soldiers to Minnesota after Tim Walz sent the Minnesota National Guard to protect protesters in Minneapolis. I'm going to say that one more time, but differently. The president sends ICE to Minnesota. ICE starts attacking citizens. The governor of Minnesota sends in the National Guard to protect said citizens. And the White House responds by preparing 1,500 soldiers to go head to Minnesota. And let me just stop the video here. The issue with ICE is not the fact that they're now attacking citizens after they've been doing this to non-U.S. citizens in the country since that man took office. The issue with ICE is the issue with most just state enforcement agencies, and it's the violence against taxpayers in order to further its own interests. I just want to make that abundantly clear because I heard how I said that. It's not off you. With that in mind, I would like to take the time to remind everybody that there will not be an alarm bell that goes off to let you know when a civil war is here. By the time our state-run media straight up says it, something like that will be much further along than the ideal place and time to get prepared from. Reuters is reporting that the Pentagon has ordered around 1,500 active duty soldiers to get ready for a possible deployment to Minnesota to respond to what's now being reported as the site of large protests against the U.S. government's deportation drive. The Army placed the units on prepare to deploy orders in case the violence in Minnesota escalates. The White House told the Huffington Post, when asked about the move, to be prepared for any decision that the president might make. And that has me personally wondering if one of those moves is using the Insurrection Act. It goes without saying, the situation in Minnesota is something you need to keep your eye on. What is happening there can happen anywhere they decide it needs to next. I'm hoping Congress or a judge steps in, but none of that is guaranteed, including the idea that the White House would send the Army into Minneapolis. Shoot me a follow to stay up to date.
It's fine wine, honey, your Mississippi auntie, cousin, or friend. Whichever you choose. Got a little breaking news. 1,500 soldiers are on standby for possible deployment to Minnesota, the Pentagon has announced. As the state mobilizes the National Guard, the Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers to prepare for possible deployment to Minnesota, according to a Trump administration source. The Trump administration source says that having troops on standby does not mean that a deployment is imminent or guaranteed. It's basically a just in case for FAFO. 2 battalions from the Alaska-based 11th Airborne Division are on prepare to deploy orders. The official said that the tasks that they would possibly take on would include crowd control or support for law enforcement, similar to the role that active duty forces played last summer in Los Angeles. Military officials say that they have options prepared for President Trump to choose from, stating that the Department of War is always prepared to execute the orders of the Commander-in-Chief. Now, this news of the active duty soldiers on standby for Minnesota comes after reports of an expected surge in Customs and Border Patrol agents and other federal personnel, including a small number of FBI agents. That's all I have for now on that story, and as it develops, you know I'll be back with more.
Yet, but once it does here in Minnesota, it is likely that there will be more demonstrations today. We are entering week 3 of unrest here, and the clashes between law enforcement and protesters are showing no signs of slowing down. There was yet another tense day here yesterday. Outside of that ICE federal facility, law enforcement holding the line against angry protesters who can be heard screaming, "Kill yourself," and "Un-American" to law enforcement. The Washington Post is reporting the Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers to prepare for possible deployment here to Minnesota if violence escalates. Now, Governor Tim Walz also mobilized the Minnesota National Guard yesterday. The Guard staged to support local law enforcement if needed, and it says it's ready to respond to locations across the metro area. Now, yesterday, protests continued outside the ICE detention center, and there was also a violent clash between counter-protesters at City Hall. President Trump has warned that he may use the Insurrection Act here in Minnesota, which would allow the federal government to use military troops to bring calm. Meanwhile, a statewide day of action is scheduled for this Friday. Activists are asking people not to attend work, school, or make purchases, and the St. Paul Federation of Educators is also asking members to get involved on.
Breaking news coming in this morning, the Pentagon has put 1,500 active duty soldiers on alert in case they need to be deployed to Minneapolis. This is possible deployment, not active. These troops reportedly come from 2 infantry battalions of the Army's 11th Airborne Division, which they are trained for cold weather operations. Officials are describing this as prudent planning in case violence escalates. It is not confirmed that they will actually be sent into Minnesota. is happening because tensions have escalated in Minneapolis due to a ICE agent, Jonathan Ross, shooting and killing Renee Good. President Trump has publicly threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's a federal law that allows active duty troops to be deployed domestically in case of civilian unrest, cases of rebellion, a very rare step. Soldiers are on standby and they had not currently been deployed. This also comes as Jake Lang claims that he was aggressively beat up and violently lynched in Minneapolis yesterday.
We're not going to be intimidated. If the goal here is safety, we've got many mechanisms to achieve safety. And the best way to get safety is not to have an influx of even more agents, and in this case, military, in Minneapolis. Right now, we have about 600 police officers, and they've got 3,000 or so ICE agents and border control. That they are now talking about deploying 1,500 military. This is, well, it's ridiculous, but we will not be intimidated by the actions of this federal government.
Earlier this week, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune editorial board wrote that your state is, quote, under siege, and compared the situation in Minneapolis to a, quote, military occupation. Is that how you see it? Is Minneapolis being occupied by the federal government?
Invaded, under siege, occupied, use whatever word or superlative that you want to attach.
The Justice Department said it's investigating you and Democratic Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota over alleged obstruction of federal law enforcement. Have you received any sort of official notice or subpoena?
No. Oh, we have not received anything. I'm not aware of specific target of performance.
Law enforcement are showing no signs of slowing down. Another tense scene Saturday outside the federal ICE facility. Law enforcement holding the line against angry protesters who can be heard screaming, "Kill yourself," and "Un-American" to officers. The Washington Post reporting about 1,500 active duty soldiers preparing to possibly make their way here if more violence escalates. And Governor Tim Walz also mobilized the Minnesota National Guard yesterday. The Guard staged to support local law enforcement if needed and says it's ready to respond to locations across the metro area. Now, yesterday, protests continued outside the ICE detention center, and there was also a violent clash between counter-protesters at City Hall. President Trump has warned that he may use the Insurrection Act here in Minnesota, which would allow the federal government to use
100 soldiers. Currently, this is already a powder keg, and it potentially could get worse.
He's going to do it. He's going to do it. Whether it's tonight, tomorrow, Monday, later next week, he's going to do it. According to the Washington Post, they've been told by Pentagon officials that the Pentagon has readied 1,500 Army soldiers to be prepared to deploy to Minnesota should Trump invoke the Insurrection Act. They said they're getting prepared in case violence increases in the state. He's going to do it. The soldiers are assigned to 2 infantry battalions with the Army's 11th Airborne Division based in Alaska, and they specialize in cold weather operations. The White House has commented on this with a statement saying it's typical for the Pentagon to be prepared for any decision the president may or may not make. ABC was the first to report this, but now that they're talking to the Washington Post and other news outlets, he's going to do it. At least that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, spread the word. Minnesota, buckle up, get prepared, everyone. Be ready. And I'll see you back here for the 411.
The Pentagon instructed 1,500 troops to be prepared to deploy to Minnesota, and this came hours after Minnesota Governor Tim Walz mobilized the Minnesota National Guard. And it appears that it's in direct response to that mobilization of the National Guard that Governor Tim Walz ordered. Now, Governor Walz ordered the National Guard to be mobilized to help local and state law enforcement manage traffic and protests in and around Minneapolis. They're going to be in bright safety vests to differentiate the National Guard troops from those individuals that are cosplaying as something more. The troops from Fort Wainwright, Alaska, the 1,500 that the Pentagon has mobilized or has told be prepared to deploy, they haven't deployed yet. They're not on their way to Minnesota at the time I'm recording this, and there's no indication that they're going to go there. But this is also on the threats of the president saying he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. This is escalating pretty quick, and it looks like Donald Trump is ready to send in U.S. Army troops into Minnesota. For something that started as a political hit job, this is escalating very fast.
This confirms what many of us have been saying. The Pentagon has 1,500 soldiers ready to deploy to Minnesota, the Army's 11th Airborne Division stationed in Alaska, and many of us have stated that Trump has been looking for a way to escalate this, to take more power and control, and to not only to cause a distraction through chaos, although that is a huge part of this because we know what's going on in the background with the Epstein files and Sasha, but also to complete their wet dreams about a police state, to so thoroughly scare the American people that they just stay inside at their homes and comply. Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act in response to the unrest there, which is being caused by ICE. It is being caused by the murder of American citizens, the kidnapping of American citizens. Our rights are being violated. These soldiers that they're planning to deploy to Minnesota are trained specifically in cold weather operations, and they will be deployed there if the violence escalates. But again, we know who is escalating the violence. We have eyes and we have ears. Supposedly, the Trump administration is planning to attack Philadelphia next. And all I have to say is Godspeed. That sounds like a decision. Minnesota has held their own, and let's just say Philadelphia is no Minnesota. So good luck to the Trump administration. And as always and forevermore, there are millions more of us than there ever will be of you.
She's full of shit. Okay, and let me tell you why. When our people were getting unalived and were unarmed, we kept saying the police was escalating these situations. The police were coming out and turning up everything. No one wanted to believe us. No one would even say, you know what, I think you're right. Nope. But you're now saying the same exact thing about ICE. So I guess it's valid when you say it, but when we say it, it's invalid, right? See, this is another reason why you should never, ever, ever, ever join these people out in the street. Because we have said this a multitude of times, and they kept ignoring us or just deny. Why would the police do that? The police, no. Y'all know the police was doing this, but if we said it, you want to deny our humanity. But now that Renee Good got killed and the ICE agent, now y'all trying to say the ICE agents are causing the whole thing. Well, when we said the police was causing it, you didn't want to hear it. So I don't want to hear it when it comes from you. She should have complied. All right, let's start saying the same shit that they say to us. She should have complied. What happened to you back to blue people? We ain't seen y'all in eons. I guess y'all just fell off the earth, huh? Hold on. Hold on. Well, that off. That's Big Judah coming on. I gotta jump over there when I'm done here. So, anyway, y'all, I'm just saying, it really pisses me off when they're saying the same words we said about the cops across this nation. You know, you Donald Trump gave them immunity. Your people don't know how to act when they have immunity. So whenever you use the word immunity for your people, lady, that means everything is going to become more violent. Everything's going to become more murderous. Everything is going to spiral out of control. That's what immunity means when you have it, when your folks have it. That's what it means. So, y'all, stay out of harm's way. Just stay out of harm's way. We are not immigrants. This is not our fight. Don't be out there at all if you don't have to. But I do understand a lot of these protests are happening in residential areas. So you can't always avoid it. I do understand that. So you're just going to have to do the best that you can to maneuver around under those circumstances. So, y'all, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here. And I also want to thank Ashura Reborn for the super chat. This is going to get really messy. Had we gone out there, they would have already called for martial law. Yeah, they want us out there badly. That's why the few people that did go out there, they ended up getting attacked by ICE. This is why you shouldn't be out there. But unfortunately, I have seen several videos where our people are itching to get out there. I say have at it. Since nobody can talk or reason with you, take your ass out there. I'm not going to feel bad for you when things happen. Go right ahead, have at it. So, y'all, I will see you later. Have a wonderful evening. Shalom.